Welcome to Smart Spaces, our conference series focusing on apartments, hospitality, and community living. If you haven't met me before, I'm Kristen Hanich, Research Director, and I lead Parks Associates coverage of broadband and of multifamily. The topic of today's event is Looking Forward, Growth for Multifamily Tech. Joining us today is Mitch Karren, Chief Product Officer at ElevateOS, formerly known as Elevated Living, as our visionary insight speaker. Afterwards, we will go into our panel discussion with a great lineup of panelists, including Earl Browning of EnviroSmarts, Anna Delgado of Gatewise, Pratik Dhebri of AvalonBay Communities, and Rob Paver of Boldyn Networks. Before we get started, I would like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for helping to make Smart Spaces possible. A big thank you to all of our inaugural sponsors, including ADT Multifamily, our smart apartment automation sponsor, Cox Communities, our turnkey solutions sponsor, NICE, our home management sponsor, and Ventiva, our IoT solution sponsor. A special thanks as well to our platinum sponsors, including Kwikset, our platinum connected lock sponsor, ROC Connect, Skybell, and SmartRent. And of course, also Rently, our registration sponsor, and Calix, our Smart Spaces Wi-Fi sponsor. Today, as I mentioned, we are going to be examining the topic of growth in multifamily, really taking a look at some underlying market trends and their likely impacts, answering the question of what are the key metrics that owners and operators are trying to achieve, and evaluating what this means in terms of smart building and smart building solutions. This is a chart that we love to share. This shows the average reported impact of smart building deployments as reported by owners and operators themselves. This is data from our 2024 study, Smart Properties, the Value of IoT for MDUs, which is available on the Parks Associates website. You can scan the QR code here. So yes, let's hop into things. It is my pleasure to introduce you all to Mitch Karren, Chief Product Officer at ElevateOS. Mitch, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and about Elevate?
Yeah, hi, thank you, Kristen. Chief Product Officer at ElevateOS, and I'll jump into the company in a little bit, but a little background on myself. I spent the last 10, 15 years building software and hardware specifically for the multifamily industry, and I'm excited to share some insights about ElevateOS and the overall multifamily market and where the growth in technology is heading. So ElevateOS is the industry first and only community operating system. And what that means, if you may, or if you're curious what that is an end-to-end software platform that services residents, real estate developers, property management companies, and owners. But the unique part about our system is that we combine software and on-site services into this unique ecosystem. Think about a property stack. We like to kind of bucket into engage, operate, service, and connect. And a single property may have upwards of 15 or 20 point solutions. This is very complicated. It's costly. It causes app fatigue. And our primary thesis for our company is basically to reduce as many, if not all, point solutions on the property, do everything in-house from a software perspective, and then connect and integrate with the hardware on site. And we bring that all under our ElevateOS operating system. This helps to lead to a reduction in point solutions of up to 75%, an NOI increase by $23 a unit a month, and can help improve renewal rates. So what does this kind of look like in practice, for a resident on their phone? They've got all these point solutions. You could have upwards of a dozen or even 20 apps in your phone, just leads to massive app fatigue. We remove all this. We bring this under a single branded app. This app can be customized, branded to the property or to the portfolio. So you'll have an app in the App Store, and the design and brand assets persist throughout the experience, and a bunch of stuff in the app can be customized. And we also offer a centralized hub for property staff. So whether you're a single site, multi-site, you're podding, you're doing neighborhood operations or fully centralized operations, you can use our software set up as flexible way as possible. So we handle stuff on both the resident engagement side and the operations side now. And then lastly, just to reemphasize the on-site services and events, we handle housekeeping, dog washing, and we do all professional events on site for staff. So let me now switch over to the multifamily trends, the bulk of the report. I'm going to go through a bunch of great data, reports, charts. So bear with me. I got a lot to show off, and then Kristen and I have some great Q&A to go through. So bear with me as I go through this. But this is a great period of the year. It was one of my favorite times, the mid-February, because really three things have happened over the last month or so. Is you get a lot of all the analytics companies, they're coming out with reports and great data on what happened last year, on the outlook. So we're going to take a look at what the data is saying. The NMHC annual apartment strategies conference happened a couple of weeks ago. And that's about 9,000 people getting together, talking about just the outlook on the industry. So it's a great way to get a vision for what's going on. And then lastly, the last couple of weeks, all the publicly traded apartment REITs, they've done their earnings calls. And so they're giving us guidance and they're giving us their outlooks on what's happening, just general trends in the industry, and of course, some of their tech strategy as well. So let's jump into some of the reports. So the rent trends, this is kind of or I should say the rent numbers. This is kind of where the top line best data, in my opinion, kind of comes from. And you can see we've had steady rent growth. We had that spike during the pandemic, and we've actually had some gradual decline over the last couple of years. And overall rent prices have been pretty flat for this year in terms of growth. We haven't really seen much growth. That's going to change hopefully this in 25 though. So last year was pretty flat overall. As you can see, but this is a longer look, and you can see the baseline 0%. We've actually had pretty substantially steady growth for about a decade. Then we had that spike in the pandemic, and now we're kind of coming back to normalized levels. What the forecasts are saying is, that last year was pretty flat, maybe a percentage point here, 2 there. 25 is probably around a 2 or 3%. So we're not kind of back into that sweet spot of 3 to 5 that you may see that in 2026. If you look at some of the, based on the city of what's going on, there are some cities that are actually above the 3 percentage point. And then you've got, unfortunately, you have Austin, the Lone Star that's actually might get a rent cut for this year. Now let's talk about apartment supply, apartment construction. That's a really good driver of what's going on trend-wise in the industry. Last year was actually, we peaked out at supply. And this is a great chart showing where the actual supply went. Not a shocker, the South got the majority of the supply. I also love this graph to also show you too how we've actually hadn't had this level of supply in many, many decades. We actually surpassed the 80s, but didn't surpass the 70s. So the 70s was where we had some actual just insane supply and construction. But we peaked out last year, and you can see some of the forecasts. We'll go into that in a little bit. This is another great graph geographically of where our actual peaks are by market. You can see some markets have already peaked, and some are going to probably peak sometime in the next couple quarters. And this is a really good graph. Sorry, the colors are a little similar, but you can see where permits dramatically have changed, both positive and negative. You can see a lot of the Sun Belt states, permits year over year have really declined in some of those states, and inversely, even New York, you've got New York and Wyoming, where permits have actually spiked up December to December. And then this is a good visual of permits, starts, completions, and absorptions. You see how absorption was at its highest it's been in a long time last year, and this year we'll kind of see completions still pretty healthy. We'll still probably see about 500,000 completed units, and then we'll probably also see around 500,000 units absorbed. So it's pretty healthy overall. But we are going to see a decline further from permits and construction completions into 26. The market's kind of saying that that's going to be the low point of construction. Then in 27, we're supposed to pick back up a little bit. So, and then this is kind of my last great graph, just showing you overall why it's better to rent right now than to buy a house. So this is great news for the industry. That's why demand's been so high, because housing affordability on the purchasing side has been really unattainable for a lot of Americans, and it's still better financially right now to rent. So let's switch over gears to the apartment strategies conference that had some great insights about what's going on. This is mostly deal makers, investment bankers, but there's also some tech and property management companies weaved into it now. So just some general themes I heard. Market fundamentals are improving across the board in many cases. There's a little bit of short-term uncertainty, some long-term optimism going into the second half of the year. Capital is available, to do deals, but some deals are just not penciling yet. Sellers of properties still think the properties are a little bit higher priced than they may be. One thing that I want to call out for this is, budgets, whether it's OpEx, CapEx, they are still tight. We're hearing that not just at this conference, but I'm hearing that as I talk to customers too. Operational efficiency is just absolutely top of mind. Everybody across the board, whether you're doing a deal, whether you're operating a portfolio, you're a property manager, just operational efficiency is absolutely critical in all fronts. And then lastly, one thing unique about this conference was it was probably the most strong conference in terms of tech presence and the property management company presence, which is a good sign overall for us from a tech perspective. So let's talk about the REITs real quick from an earnings and tech strategy. A couple quotes that stood out to me. The turnover, which is the measurement of people that leave apartments, and inversely, its retention was at its low. Turnover was at its lowest rate for equity residential, so retention was at its highest rate, which is really good sign. That means they're doing a really good job at that company. At UDR, I love this quote. Ongoing investments in advancing the customer experience. So that's really just investing in technology and improving the overall resident experience is able to drive NOI for the company. So that's a really good validation point for what we're doing in tech and how we're able to help these owners and operators deliver a great experience to the residents. Quickly, I want to call out AvalonBay in a great way here. I know Pratik is coming up next, so hopefully I'm not stealing too much of his thunder, but they did share some of their key operating initiatives. We won't go through all of this, but I did just want to call out one thing here, which is great, is you're seeing bulk Wi-Fi and smart access almost deployed ubiquitously throughout the portfolio, and to double down on this theme of centralization that's been a trend for a long time, been a hype, but now this is kind of coming into practice, and we're seeing really good evidence that this is working. As by AvalonBay saying that they've basically deployed it to 70% of the portfolio, and that's been able to reduce their operating expenses. Moving to in a similar capacity to MAA, they have a similar graph that they share in their earnings presentation. I'll call out a few things on here as well. Smart home technology investments, they've completed their installations by the end of this year. So they've done 100,000 units or approximately around that. That's how many they own. And so you can see the great NOI that they're getting on that, as well as the expense savings from leak detection. So really strong evidence that their investments in this sector, in this category, have paid off. And then also as well on the potting side, this is their terminology of centralization, where AvalonBay was talking about neighborhoods. They're talking about how potting has saved them $2 million in expense savings. So another validation that the tools they're putting in place to do all these things have paid off nicely. I'll end with some venture capital trends. That's a good indicator of where kind of the money is flowing and where we'll see some tech investments and new tech companies pop up. This shouldn't be a surprise that AI, automation, data analytics are kind of the hot spots right now, especially last year. This is another cool graph from JLL showing where their money's kind of gone, where money's gone historically over the last couple of years. Design and construction in 22 had a peak. In general, the market peaked in 22 from a VC perspective. You can kind of see broken down a little bit different way where money went: leasing operations, building operations. So cool graph there. I love this, is this show that about 10% of companies right now, prop tech companies, and this is globally, are either a native AI product or are implementing and infusing AI into their products. So I think this is a really good case to say, like, there's a lot of opportunity for the other 90% of existing companies to go infuse your products with AI. I think we can all agree now that the tools around AI are really easy to implement and can not only drive savings from you from a prop tech company perspective, but also for your customers. So I think this is a great opportunity and growth area. And I'll just finish with the last slide, just showing where overall funding money for prop tech companies is in the world. The vast majority is still in the US. So that's a great sign for us. We almost have $7 billion, I believe, raised over the last 5 years from a venture capital perspective, and hopefully we'll see that money deployed and some great new tech companies come up, as well as reinvestment in some existing companies. All right, I think that's it. I'll turn it back over to Kristen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mitch. Let me hop back on camera. There we go. But yes, I think I'm great presentation. I think we learned a lot of very interesting things there, some good things about the market, some promising things as well. So I'm interested in diving maybe a little bit more on some of these subjects. So how do you see some of the trends that you just discussed really impacting the prop tech space, and what specifically do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I think where the rent numbers are going and the rent growth, whenever you're kind of seeing the rent growth kind of flatten, that kind of trickles down to people tightening their budgets overall. And that was that theme I was talking about a lot. And when budgets tighten, people start drawing a bit of a line on what they're going to adopt tech wise and what they may not adopt this year, particularly. I know that kind of they may sound a bit not optimistic, but I actually think it's great for the industry where existing prop tech solutions, they need to they need to really prove out that their solutions can either drive ancillary income or reduce operating expenses. So if their ROI isn't really proven, they may not survive. But the companies that are out there that have a really good business model, that have a really good product market fit, and that can truly drive and boost NOI, they will survive. You're seeing owners, operators, developers really sharpen their pencils more now, and really have a better take on what's happening with the time to achieve ROI, and if this product is really truly being adopted by their people, being used by the residents. So you're seeing a lot of better due diligence around products, and I think that's overall great for the industry.
Yes, a lot of very discerning buyers nowadays, lots of folks looking for very data-driven decision making. So having those metrics and studies done to actually back this up is extremely important. So something else I'd like to dig into, where are you seeing some of the growth areas for multifamily tech, kind of given the dynamics here, potentially a challenging environment?
Yeah, this goes back to the either is it going to generate income or is it going to reduce operational expenses? As some of the REITs were talking about, really where they're seeing some strong NOI, they've really proven out that some of these investments have paid off, and they're really they're really the leaders in terms of getting these hardware systems deployed broadly, ubiquitously, and that's really shown improvement. So I think that's where some of the continued growth is, because what they do, a lot of the mid-market and small companies, they kind of the dominoes fall, and they'll adopt after they see the evidence that the REITs have done it. The REITs have proven that a lot of these things that they've deployed, they've invested in, have done well. So I think there's still a lot of growth opportunities in Wi-Fi and smart home. And on the inverse of that, where those may generate a lot of ancillary income, but also help out with operational efficiency. I think as a lot of the industry is saying, again, operational efficiency is top of mind. So whatever you can do to simplify your tech stack, whatever you can do to speed up customer response, customer support, infusing AI across all those things. I think that's really where people are seeing. And a lot of these tech stacks are complicated. They want to remove stuff that's not being used or hard to adopt. So I think that's kind of the general trend in the industry is like, can other products simplify tech stacks? And generally, can they help me improve my operations? Labor is a big issue these days with property management companies. It's hard to hire. It's hard to hire and retain maintenance talent. So getting people adopting these products and using them the right way is a hurdle. So your product also really needs to be simple and scalable.
Yes, can somebody learn how to use it in a day or 2 days, even if they have maybe minimal training?
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's interesting maybe to dig into this topic as well as resident expectations, resident needs. Like, I mean, how has that changed? What's in high demand?
Well, what I would say is hasn't necessarily changed, but is obviously in high demand is Wi-Fi. I think I can't imagine living in an apartment building that doesn't have some good connectivity, whether it's Wi-Fi or strong cellular connection. I mean, we're all just so much dependent on our phones to do everything, and that's not going down at all. If anything, it's just dramatically and exponentially increasing. So still very Wi-Fi demand. I think a seamless experience too is in demand from that perspective, where the minute you walk into the property, you're connected to the network. And when you walk from your vehicle in the parking garage to your unit, you have this just, strong connection. There's no downtime, not even if you're in the elevator. So I think not only having, good Wi-Fi, but that seamless experience as you walk throughout the property. What we're also seeing, and I hear this a lot from residents, is faster and simpler service, especially when it comes to dealing with their property manager or property management company. Everyone, I feel like, is so used to ride share and food delivery and having stuff just so instantaneously on our phone. And now with the AI chatbots giving you really, really accurate answers within a half a second, residents are now demanding that similar or same experience with the property staff. So residents being able to ask a question, get an answer, have something get fixed. The faster these things happen now, that's just going to create a better resident experience. And I think the general tech industry, whether it's the on-demand economy or the AI chatbots, that's just naturally pushing the tech companies like ourselves and the property management companies to work together to provide residents a much better experience when it comes to service and support.
Mm-hmm. So some realistic kind of applications of AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would like to dig a little bit more into the AI topic later, but maybe let's right now flip the question around to property managers and maybe what are you hearing from them?
Yeah, property managers are, at the end of the day, they're pretty simple people. Their goals, I should say, are simple. They want to fill units, they want to, keep residents happy, they want to collect rent on time, and they want to make sure that, their units are being renewed and retained on time and whatnot. So, ultimately, if your product is filling one of those, buckets, you're going to win with them. What I said a few minutes ago, I'll reemphasize here is the labor issue. It's really difficult today to hire good talent, to train people, and what we're seeing is that when a property manager hires a maintenance technician, and that maintenance technician needs to learn 3 or 4 or 5 products themselves just for their little stack, that's really difficult for them. And so just to simplify all of that into one product, and the same kind of actually goes for a property manager themselves. We work a lot with regional managers, and I hear this a lot all the time where, a property manager moving from one property to another property, completely different tech stack from one to the other. So the training to get that property manager from one to another property can be really difficult. And so we're constantly hearing this ongoing theme of there's a lot of great tech out there, but it's really hard for me to jump online and learn 15 things and track 15 logins. And this constant theme that we keep hearing of there's a lot of great tech, but I want it just in one single app if possible.
Yes, I think especially when you get into maybe solutions that require a separate onboarding and offboarding experience for each individual resident.
Yeah.
It's very, very complicated very quickly. So I'm interested as well as kind of digging into the smart building space, and you mentioned some of the trends I think around Wi-Fi, but what about maybe kind of the larger connectivity bucket, access, smart home?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're for new developments, I feel we're hitting this point where all of those are being ubiquitously deployed. Even a few years ago, real estate developments move in 2-3 years back. So the decisions you make today, for instance, on a new development, they don't get installed for several years, and could be more depending on the state. So I think even so finally decisions that were made like right after the pandemic, so around 22, 23, we're now seeing those good decisions. So I feel like in terms of new construction, we're seeing a lot of great decisions made, putting in the right Wi-Fi, putting in all the smart access systems, putting in all the smart home. They're doing kind of the whole gamut on that. So I feel really good about where that space is, and that developers in general are educated enough to make good decisions on what to put in, not just for themselves, but for when they sell the property. A lot of these merchant builders will sell the property right away when the property's leased up. So the next owner, they'll inherit the property and it's in good working order. I honestly couldn't say that, 3-4 years ago. We're still seeing a lot of not great decisions 3-4 years ago about deployments of like the hardware and the connectivity and the access control space. So I'm very confident about moving forward in that respect. On the retrofit side for existing properties, I wouldn't say it's as bright of a picture. I still think there's great opportunities as evidenced by Mid-America and AvalonBay. With interest rates a little bit higher than normal, it makes some deals harder to pencil out from an apps, just a pure adoption perspective on that front. But again, I love the fact that those companies are sharing their evidence that these investments can pay off. So it hopefully will trickle down, as I mentioned, the domino effect that other companies will invest in these and they'll go down. From like a raw tech perspective, what's exciting to me about whether it's a door lock, an access control system, or Wi-Fi is where we're kind of, in my opinion, and hopefully some others share this with me, is we're kind of on like that Gen 3, even Gen 4 of all these products, whether it's a lock, a thermostat, and so we're really seeing great mature products now, where I think 5-7 years ago we're still in that like Gen 1, Gen 2. And so I'm really excited to see the tech that's out there. You're seeing Apple Wallet pretty much in most locks. That's great to see. Almost every door is online now, which is amazing to see. The new Wi-Fi systems we're putting in place are on the newest Wi-Fi technology, so they can handle thousands and thousands of devices. So overall, again, I'm also super confident, not just in terms of the adoption, but just the actual tech that's being deployed now, because everything's in a very mature spot and stage.
Yes, and you mentioned all the locks online, all these different things online, of course, and that kind of ties back into this topic of AI and what you can do with AI. And I'm very curious. Of course, we've seen a lot of momentum over the past few years. At the same time, a lot of hype potentially. So, to what degree are you seeing kind of real momentum, kind of real solutions? What are companies adopting today, and what do you see as a big upcoming opportunity?
Yeah, I think from a existing adoption perspective, we've seen a lot in the way of communication, which might be obvious, but anytime that, I hate to say it, a bot can answer a question faster than a human and answer that question more accurately, you're going to find efficiencies, and not just efficiencies, but you're going to typically garner better user satisfaction. And these products are very scalable too. So, you can deploy it in one property to a pilot, and then you can scale out this AI communication chatbot pretty broadly. So it's exciting to see that. I think that is dramatically improving operational efficiency. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of just general AI find value with the industry. It's finding value now from a communication perspective. And then what I would say going forward, is around collecting just broader insights on what's going on at the property. There's a lot of, speaking of IoT devices, there's a lot of data that these IoT devices collect. And I don't think until some of these AI models were released over the last few years, it was easy to analyze these vast swaths of data from thermostats, from locks, from other sensors. And so I think we're going to start to see, and my hope and my vision is that the next couple of years we'll start to see a lot of AI models run through devices and tell us better insights about how buildings are performing, and potentially even how to build better buildings in general. I think there's a whole layer of information that we haven't even really touched yet that can provide some really good insights on building better properties.
Yes, sorry, I am curious to know kind of what are your predictions maybe for 2025, kind of not just for AI, but the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an AI perspective, we're going to see a lot more adoption. That's probably one of the areas that's going to get adopted the most, because it's fairly inexpensive and has some pretty strong ROI and NOI opportunities. It's a very clear path to both of those for deploying these tools. What I would say, just to kind of digress and step back from a predictions perspective, I see some big deals happening this year from an M&A perspective. I see a couple companies, maybe one or two companies, announce that they may go public in the prop tech space, specifically multifamily. We've seen some good growth in a few companies. I could see them announcing. From a kind of going back to the M&A perspective, I think a lot of prop tech companies were founded around the 2016, 17, 18 years. And if you think about those life cycles, they're hitting their 7, 8, 9 year life cycle, which is usually when the venture capitalists and investors want to see some type of return or exit. So I think last year there's a bit of uncertainty, which was going on with everything. And so I think this year we'll have a better unlock of opportunity around kind of companies changing hands, some consolidation in the market, and I predict a few big deals happening that are, I think, overall great for the industry though.
Yes, I think, yeah, good momentum on mergers and acquisitions and other such things. But yes, thank you so very much for joining me today, Mitch. I think that was very excellent talk, and thank you so much for sharing kind of all those findings. Very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you, Kristen, and Parks. Thank you again for hosting a great event.
All right. But yes, next up we have our panel discussion, really digging into the subject of growth in multifamily. Panelists, please feel free to join me here, kind of on screen. Um, There we go. So yeah, so joining us today are experts really from around the industry, including Earl Browning of EnviroSmarts, Anna Delgado of Gatewise, Rob Paver of Boldyn Networks. Pratik Dhebri of AvalonBay Communities should be joining shortly, but we'll give him a few minutes to kind of appear. But Earl, maybe you can start us off with maybe a quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about EnviroSmarts. Earl, I think you may have a slight audio issue. Um,
How about now?
there we go. There we go.
That's amazing. Okay, yes. I am Earl Browning and I'm with EnviroSmarts. We do water leak detection. Water leaks, many of you may know, is the #1 cause of damage in buildings. And unlike smoke detectors that are everywhere, almost no one has water leak detection. We believe this is because most of the products are just not very good. They almost all rely on either building Wi-Fi or a technology called LoRaWAN. And to make a long story short, both of those technologies require a lot of gateways everywhere. Our technology is the only one in the industry based on a mesh networking technology that's patented, in which the sensors themselves, which are really small, about the size of a AA battery, network to each other, and they all go to one gateway. We do the Transamerica building, which is the second largest building in downtown San Francisco, and we run the whole thing on one gateway. So there's no thing to get unplugged or fail and cause problems in the network. Ours is just much more reliable and doesn't use any of your services, and you can count on knowing within 4 seconds when there's a water leak anywhere.
All right, very interesting. Oh, so yes, here's your information
Oh,
about
yeah,
your
there you
solution.
go.
Here we
Yeah,
are.
this little graphic kind of shows you what I'm talking about. Each of those sensors talk to each other, and then they all go to a gateway, and there's just nothing that has to plug in, and it's super reliable, which is what you need for something this critical.
Yes, you don't want your sensor to lose connectivity the exact moment a water pipe bursts.
Exactly.
But yes, so also joining us today, of course, Anna Delgado of Gatewise, Director of Marketing. Anna, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and about Gatewise?
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm Ana Delgado. I'm the director of marketing here at Gatewise. We're an access control company. We do smart access for multifamily communities. We focus on all asset classes, but mainly on B, C, and D class communities all across the country. Our goal is basically we want to create operational efficiencies without losing that nice, smart resident experience. And yeah, that's what we do. I have a background in prop tech marketing now and also in commercial real estate. So I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I think you get to see a lot of very interesting crossover, I imagine, between those two markets.
Yes, I do.
Yes, well, very happy to have you here, Anna, and very looking forward to hearing more. So yes, of course, Rob Paver as well, VP of Business Development at Boldyn Networks. Rob, can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself, about Boldyn?
Absolutely. Yeah, you hear me good, Kristen?
Oh, yes.
Great. I'm Rob Paver, as Kristen mentioned, with Boldyn Networks. So Boldyn Networks is really a company focused solely on connectivity. So we have everything from Wi-Fi to 5G DAS. So if you think private LTE, private 5G, Wi-Fi, metro transit, if you've ever ridden the BART in San Francisco, you've connected to our network. We're one of the largest actually transit network carriers out there. So a lot of neutral hosts. So we'll carry all the big carriers traffic, but at the core of what we do is really wireless, which is where we got our start in multifamily housing. And so we're one of the largest multifamily housing wireless providers out there. We do it both in bulk and subscription. And so we're not directly tied to property tech. It's funny, I like to say that, we're experts in property tech, but it really has nothing to do with our business. Our business is making our clients happy. And where Boldyn really likes to sort of hang its hat is we provide really solid technical depth and capability. And we really focus on a partnership, focused approach, right? So we want to work with ownership to understand what is it that you want to accomplish so that we make sure at the end of the day, we're delivering on your needs. And I know all this sounds good and it sounds nice and fluffy and all those things, but honestly, it makes our job so much easier, right? Like when we nail it from the beginning, then it makes a really easy customer to keep down the road and to keep them happy because things are functioning where they want them to. So I've always been personally very passionate and excited about prop tech. And, as you guys know, there's a million different prop tech things out there now. So we do a ton of it. And I'm really excited to talk more with the people on this panel and get to hear everyone's questions.
I think I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say about some of these areas, Rob. I mean, connectivity touches pretty much everything, really, in this area. So yes, and also joining us today, Pratik Dhebri, VP and Head of Product Management at AvalonBay Communities. Pratik, tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and about AvalonBay.
Sure. So, assuming all of you are able to hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So yes, AvalonBay is probably one of the largest publicly traded multifamily or rental housing REITs. So we recently also made a foray into single family or build to rent housing. My role at AvalonBay is really to look after all our customer products and how to make the customers as well as the lives of our associates seamless and frictionless, right? So today it's really about digitizing a lot of the workflows we have and removing friction from every step of the process, right? From a customer trying to tour a property, apply for one, rent one, stay in a property, as well as then renew with us or move out as well.
Yeah, so a lot of kind of different things in there. Well, very happy that you're able to join us and certainly looking forward to hearing more.
Absolutely.
All right, let's maybe dive into our subject, our topic here. So trying to understand a little bit about what's going on in this market. So I think I would really like to maybe dig into a couple of different points. So really the topic of today is growth and understanding kind of what is going on in this space. And my slides have rebelled on me. My apologies. Let me just jump back to where we are supposed to be. Here we are. So yes. Okay. Yeah, so I think I would like to maybe kick things off with kind of an icebreaker question, really understanding where you guys see this market, what's going on. kind of this year when it comes to growth in multifamily. And maybe Pratik, you can kick us off, kind of letting us know a little bit about what you're seeing kind of in 2025 when it comes to market growth and development.
Yeah, I think few things that are forcing multifamily operators, including AvalonBay, to look at technology in a different way. So I would say the consumer expectations of what consumers expect from technology have changed dramatically in the last 5 years. I would say the pandemic had this unintended consequence, like everyone wants to do everything on their cell phone, including ordering groceries, taking care of routine day-to-day stuff, right? And that led to, I would say, heightened customer expectations. And when customers, started coming to a multifamily property and, oh, I need to now submit a paper application. Are you serious about it? Right? That was kind of the moment of realization, is where technology had to keep up to speed with what consumers expect from rental housing providers. So that's kind of one big macro trend. Then also there's various places in which technology can not only drive efficiencies within the business, but as well as provide new rental revenue streams. So bulk internet is one such example where it can lead to increased revenues for multifamily operators, and AvalonBay, we are certainly taking full advantage of it. So we are kind of calling it the technology package, which not only includes internet services, but smart access to your homes, as well as in some cases, smart thermostats. So this is really embedding technology to provide a much better living experience for our residents.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think going back to my paper application example, it's like there are so many processes that our associates have to go to, which is a copy paste or using Excel or some other stuff that can be truly automated. So I would say that's another big area where we are looking at, is how do we automate the back-end business processes? And some of them have the effect of making the customer experience pretty simple. So you don't need to wait for an associate to approve your application. It can all be auto-approved, because if you go through some credit or screening providers, they can auto-approve, and then it makes the customer experience much more simpler.
Yes, I think Mitch was in our keynote. Mitch was mentioning some of the big advancements that companies were making, especially with using AI to streamline some parts of the process, kind of helping customers be more easily and quickly served.
Exactly.
I think it would be interesting. So we also, I think, during our keynote discussion, touched a little bit on the topic of NOI, different ways of improving that. And Earl, of course, your solution, the water leak detectors have this opportunity of really preventing costs, kind of reducing damages or preventing damages kind of entirely. So maybe you can touch a little bit on how companies are evaluating those opportunities this year. What is maybe some of the thinking there?
Yeah, the overall NOI, if you can analyze the whole picture, is going to be really affected by getting rid of water leak damage, because everyone in the MDU community is used to understands how bad that can be. It's not just the damage itself, but it's also relocating tenants and all those things. And then what does that do to your Yelp reviews? Because tenants are never happy when they finally read the fine print and realize that they're liable for a lot more than they thought they were when a water leak occurs. In the commercial property space, it's an easy sell, because once people see our technology and realize, oh, your stuff actually works, they know the NOI much easier because they have seen the building over long periods. A lot of times in the MDU space, it's a little more challenging. You might be dealing with an owner over here and an operator over here, and they aren't on the same page as far as the NOI. Their NOI is different. What do you mean by net? If you really net it out, though, almost every building is going to have damage eventually caused by water. And early detection gets rid of 96% of the damage that will happen. So water leak detection, if effective, will raise the NOI if you can see it. Does that make sense? I
Yes, I
see
think that
nodding his head, so that's good to see. But yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
yes, it's I mean, water leaks are a major issue for anywhere you have plumbing, so being able to kind of prevent, mitigate that is helpful, of course.
Yeah, true. Thank you.
So something that I would kind of like to maybe touch on a bit. So we talked a little bit about evaluating opportunities, so maybe some of the thinking around ROI, operational efficiencies. And Rob, maybe you can help. What are some of the key factors maybe that owners and operators are considering now when it comes to implementing smart buildings, smart prop tech? Of course, you need connectivity, and then that's something you guys are consulted about, asked about.
Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing tons of it, right? I mean, everything, you guys are probably with door locks, cameras, smart appliances, smart refrigerators. And I think it's kind of important too, as you look at it, to break it into what are you trying to accomplish, right? So you've got your property management smart tech, which is things that helps your staff be more efficient. Perhaps it helps onboard, a tenant or resident easier. So those are more your internal facing systems, right? And then you've got what I kind of call smart home tech, which is more it's a nice amenity for the resident, right? Whether it's letting them control their thermostat remotely or providing them with a smart refrigerator, and by the way, whatever that is, right? But they're all connected now, right? And so it's deciding what it is you're trying to accomplish, I think has been one of the things we found that's really interesting in having conversations with our clients, right? And then working from there to figure out which direction they want to go in the technology. So, it's awesome that there's all these new technologies out there, but it really comes down to which ones can your property support and which ones can your budget support. And I will say that you've got to be careful, right? Like there is no silver bullet technology solution. That's why we don't recommend any specific property technology, right? It's because they all have a useful application. It's just a matter of figuring out which one's right for yours. And so I highly encourage people to try to find, partners or other properties or owners who have similar situations and figuring out what works. Because property technology will take you a long ways. It can be such a boon. It can drive ROI, as Earl was mentioning. Absolutely agree on that. If you can prevent water leaks or mitigate the damage that occurs when they do happen, that's a direct bottom line, value. At the same time, not properly deployed, you don't end up getting the savings, right? It becomes not only an expense, but something that doesn't drive value at the end of the day. And so, I don't want to get too much into the future questions I know we're going to go through, but we have kind of really a mantra here internally where we talk about, define, design, deploy, right? And in that design phase, you're doing lots of iterations, right? So it's testing and iterating, right? Before you're going to roll out 400 locks at your property, don't you want to test at least 3 or 4 doors with it? And how long do you want that test to go to make sure that you're really buying the right one? Because there's a ton in the market. There's a ton of great locks out there, and all of them have a great application, but none of them is universal.
Yes, I think you raised a lot of great points. I think it's also important to know that, of course, these solutions have to work well, I think, for both the property and the resident as well, to have that good experience, like really accomplish the things that they're supposed to do. Otherwise, it doesn't quite drive the value that these folks expect.
Absolutely.
And I think so. Anna, I would also love your feedback here. Of course, your company, Gatewise, you do a lot in the access control space. I think we are hearing at Parks Associates and maybe elsewhere in the industry a lot of excitement around access control technologies. Kind of what are companies doing right now there, and again, what are they looking for, and where are they focusing?
Well, most companies are focusing on giving the residents a good experience, but also making sure that their on-site teams are comfortable with the technology and have the tools that they need to make everything more seamless. So just the fact that, they can give the resident the opportunity to forget about the stress of having to be there physically to let, DoorDash in or let Instacart in. That gives everyone, a lot of peace of mind. But also those on-site people that are, they have so many priorities and they're thinking about the budget that they have for repairs and even fobs and keys. So giving them the tools that allow them to just simply, connect to their property management system and give access to those that need access and to the exact access points that they needed. I think that that solves that problem. And many companies are looking right now at technology that doesn't just enhance the resident experience and, as I said, fix that stress point for the on-site people, but also give regional managers one tool that they can teach several properties across the board, so that they don't have to be, we have mentioned this in the past, teaching different tools to all people, on-site, can be stressful and can be difficult. So I think if you have one tool that can do several different things, make several different groups of people happy, I think you're good to go.
Yes, I think we were also talking a little bit earlier during Mitch's keynote about this movement of the market towards centralization, kind of AvalonBay having a number of initiatives, and of course other REITs as well. So I think we are starting to see kind of more and more traction there, and of course requiring these access control solutions as a linchpin. So I think something else that might be kind of interesting to explore, and Pratik, maybe you can let us know your thoughts here. Where are you seeing maybe a lot of interesting growth among specific solutions at AvalonBay? Of course, we talked a lot about AI previously, some of the different use cases there, different things requiring interconnectivity and integration, especially since you guys had rolled out so much bulk Wi-Fi across your portfolio, managed Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, I think definitely, and I'll probably pick on one of the points Anna made as well, right, around smart access and how that enables centralization, right? So we do have a fully self-guided tool where, using the smart access technology, using the mobile website, you can basically unlock doors, take tours of our properties, right? Almost, I would say, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, without ever talking to an associate on site. Now, because of this technology and not having an associate on site, we're able to support those tours. Like, let's say the customer during the tour has a question, we're able to support it in a centralized fashion, including, let's say, the door code is not working. I'm not able to unlock this door. The centralized person can now, provide a new code or assist the customer in unlocking the door. Because sometimes this technology may not be the most user friendly. So that's kind of a very powerful use case of having smart access or smart technology within the building. Now coming to AI, we've definitely deployed AI in our leasing or prospect journey, which is right from someone looking for an apartment on our website, chatting with us, or registering their interest, right, by booking a tour on our website or any other ILS website as well. Then we are able to use AI, which is, we call it internally as Sydney, to kind of nurture that lead and then even collect more information from the prospect of what they're exactly looking at. And then in cases of a fully self-guided tour, also remind them, provide them their codes, help them check in, right? So the activities that typically an associate would have done previously are now done using an AI assistant. And we are looking at also rolling that AI assistant across other use cases for the resident lifecycle. So those are some of the, I would say we have centralized quite a lot of functions from when it comes to a resident standpoint. But instead of always having a human triage the issue or provide customer support, it's can a bot or an AI assistant be the first line of defense so that we can interact with the customer on various channels, which includes text, email, voice calls as well, 24/7 in a proactive fashion. So I think that's the real, I would say, vision that we are going after is 24/7 proactive customer support using AI as the first line of defense.
Yeah, so really kind of enabling you guys to see more and have more touch points than is humanly possible. Very interesting. So I think I would also like to maybe ask a little bit about what is potentially needed to kind of drive growth forward in some of these markets. So I think I brought that topic up when we first started, and I would like to dig into that a little bit, kind of before we get into some of these other subjects as well. So I guess, Earl, Rob, any particular thoughts here? I know we'd talked a little bit earlier about the role potentially of sustainability, ESG, some different factors, and of course there'd been so much movement on the internet service side of things, kind of what folks are doing there.
Yeah, ESG, I mean, the first thing that should probably be discussed is like, why ESG, right? I mean, there's so many reasons for it these days. Not only will it make your property more operationally efficient, but nowadays people that are doing investments, the capital markets are often looking for ESG compliant, properties, as well as insurance premium reductions. There's tenant attraction. These days, millennials look at things like that. They want a company that's environmentally and socially responsible, and long-term asset value can increase. And then, of course, to turn that on, what interests me is like water leaks, right? How do water leaks help in that? Well, water leaks help in all three areas. I mean, first of all, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So environmentally, you're conserving more water, you're conserving energy, and you have a lower carbon footprint. Socially, you're getting rid of a much higher level of risks for getting mold and things like that, as well as just occupants' comfort overall, because you're going to have less occupants, less tenants or residents displaced, which is a huge comfort factor. And then governance-wise, there's a lot of regulations coming that are going to be big on being ESG compliant. It's not so strong right now, but it's coming, folks. And then just overall risk management. So there's a lot of things in this area, ESG wise.
Oh, very, very interesting. Of course, a lot of kind of good movement there. I think it would maybe be interesting kind of as well to dive in a little bit on kind of the subject of, so I mentioned kind of growth in multifamily, and Rob, I have a question for you. Has the industry made any maybe notable advancements when it comes to putting in the infrastructure for Wi-Fi and connectivity? So we've heard a lot that there have been all this movement towards having all these networks in place in new construction. Of course, retrofitting is still this enormous market of all this existing kind of buildings and properties and concrete everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there has been. I mean, I would say that there's been some good advancements in one, literally how they physically pull the cables. They've, has come a long way. We have a lot of cabling installers in our company, right? And we're installing in everything from the subways of New York to old buildings in Manhattan. And so they, everything from the fiber that you can blow through microduct to maglevs, being able to pull things down the walls. It's really come a long way, but retrofitting is still invasive, right? And always will be. I think, on some level, to the extent that we've been able to, as Pratik said, remove some friction, which I'm going to use that Pratik a lot because I like it a lot. uh, to remove some friction, some of it has been wireless has gotten much better. And so you're able to get away now with a lot of times putting in one device in a given unit, and that providing sufficient coverage, and then allowing a lot of other devices to connect to it, including some of your property-owned devices like the door lock, cameras, sensors, other things. So I do think it's moved a lot that direction. At the same time, though, construction, and this ties into the ESG conversation we were just having, actually, right? Building materials have changed a lot to become more energy efficient. One of the biggest ones being the glazing they put on glass buildings now, right? It kills signal, especially 5G. You get into those higher frequencies, it does not like to come through those. And then we've also brought in security into the world, right? And so all of us have, use our phones, I'm sure, and I'm sure all of you, much like me, 2 or 3 times a day, are logging into something and it says, oh, I want to verify it's you, let me text you, right? Well, if you don't have cell phone signal in your unit, it's really hard to get that 2-factor authentication to work. And so we've been working, that's one of the reasons we've been trying to roll out carrier offloading onto all of our wireless networks so that your phone actually connects and thinks it's on AT&T, directly at the access point. So it's this constant, evolution there, right? Where it's, we do one thing to fix one thing and then we do another thing to make that work with everything else that we have. In new construction, I will say, and I never thought this day would come, the construction industry has seemingly heard about technology now, and they're much better about building it in from day one. And we much appreciate that. So it's not like 10 years ago when you go sit down and meet with the architect and say, oh no, yeah, you got to have some place to put this equipment. All those wires got to go somewhere. So we have seen a lot of that come. I do think that the wireless, Wi-Fi game has changed a lot. We've gone from, having Thread, Zigbee, Z-Wave, Matter, BLE, Wi-Fi, low RAN, RAN, right? These are all, I was just literally searching our support help desk for the different IoT technologies that we had knowledge bases on. And those are literally the first ones that came up, and it keeps going. There's Sigfox, private 5G, private LTE. You've got all of these different protocols that are out there, and many of them are still, it's supported today, right? We have to continue to support those, but they've gotten much better. And so I think that we are seeing an improvement of it, and we're starting to see what Pratik was talking about, where property owners are actually able to tangibly demonstrate what they have saved, reduction in head count or reduction in time. And having started my career on the property side and working closely with property management, I always think of the staff first, because I always feel like if you can make the property staff more efficient and you can make their life easier, remove that friction, that also trickles to the residents, because an overloaded property staff is not able to take care of the residents well, not able to take care of their property well. So we're really focused on that, and it all kind of ties back to this quote that someone told me, and I actually looked it up. It's not attributed to anybody, but it says that simplicity is not the opposite of complexity. It is just, one second, let me make sure I write this right. It is the clarity of purpose, right? And I think that really goes a long way as you think about your property tech, is having that clarity of purpose. What am I trying to do here? And then making sure that you say that out loud over and over every time you look at different solutions, and make sure that you're still marching towards that North Star.
Yes, not complex for the sake of complex or simple for the sake of simple, but that it accomplishes the purpose that you set out to achieve.
Exactly. And you can make all of these systems are inherently complex, right? Especially in the back end. But that doesn't mean that they can't be simple to use when deployed correctly, right? And I think that's what you're really focusing on, right? Behind the scenes is always complicated. We need to be aware of that, but making it simple to use is critical.
Yes, I think absolutely, and it's certainly exciting to hear about all those developments in the market and kind of making things easier to retrofit. So I think we're hearing that kind of even as companies are looking at all these different ways of retrofitting in connectivity, adding in connectivity. Of course, there are some areas where that's not necessarily feasible, so they are looking to alternatives. And Earl, you were talking a little bit about kind of your company's solution with the mesh networking. and Anna as well. I think kind of your solutions with Gatewise, you have some offline solutions for locks. So I think it would be interesting to kind of touch on that, some of the momentum you guys are seeing there, kind of the ways these are being deployed. And Earl, maybe you can kick it off.
Okay. What exactly are you asking? I'm not sure I followed the question.
Are you seeing like so increased interest maybe in solutions that work without Wi-Fi, kind of in the retrofitting environment?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked me that because first of all, Rob, I'm sure your Wi-Fi is super reliable. Okay. But the problem that I have with Wi-Fi is that we have as a company is it's not just the reliability, but it's the liability. So the big reason why I don't want to depend on someone else's network is I'm providing a service that I want to have up all the time in a very specific way. And so I think that, to get right around to answering your question, I think what people like about our network is they realize, oh, so that's all your stuff. I don't have to do anything. We even I told you we don't need that many gateways. If our gateway becomes unplugged, it has a battery in it that will run for 6 days. So by then we have contacted you and said, hey, plug that thing in. Someone go put eyes on that gateway and tell me why it's unplugged. And so I think that answers your question. For us, what people really like is that, yeah, it's a technology that they don't have to be responsible for, and they know is going to just run and all the time, 24/7, 365.
Okay, so yeah, in the event of power outages or the internet network goes out, you have that additional kind of solution.
Yeah, we had a building that they lost power for 28 hours, and during that time, they got notified that they had a water leak, and they were just like unbelievable. They got out there and were able to fix it. So it does make a difference.
Yes, we're having that Arctic blast kind of happen right now in the across the U.S. So I'm sure there are some places where the power is out and maybe the pipes are starting to freeze and they're wondering about the condition of their pipes.
Yeah, sorry to do another plug, but we do temperature too, so we'll send warnings for that as well with this little sensor.
Very good. And Anna, I'm kind of curious. I've been hearing a lot about all of these different solutions with access control and smart door locks as well, where you're able to kind of work via Bluetooth, offline, kind of in maybe even different mesh networking situations. Can you tell us a little bit about that, maybe?
Yes. So it's something as sensitive as having access to your home and your community. I think relying on just Wi-Fi is never a good option. So what we have is cellular. So no matter what's happening, you're going to be able to get in and get out of your community. And this is especially important when we're talking about retrofits because having connectivity all over the if it's an expansive community, you can't always have Wi-Fi everywhere. You may have a gate to parking garage that is very far away from the actual building. So what we find is having cellular at that access point that doesn't depend on anything else makes people, residents and staff have a more reliable option that they know that they'll be able to access, and they know that once it's closed and it's only accessible by the people that actually should be in there. So cellular gives that reliability and it gives that peace of mind to everyone, which is why we love our retrofits and BNC and D communities, because we can bring them up to speed with technology. And even if it's a small investment where they have to do some low voltage or some type of, because we do have a obviously hardware piece, is a small investment compared to the the competitiveness that it brings to that community in particular.
Yes, I think it's there are I think, pros and cons with using any type of networking solution, and there are different environments where it works extremely well and other environments where it doesn't necessarily work so well. So you have to kind of evaluate and choose the option that works best. And then Pratik, of course, at AvalonBay, you had this major effort to kind of roll out Wi-Fi across most of your communities and a lot of retrofitting there as well. Maybe you can mention some of the decisions you had to make, maybe some of the trade-offs that go into
Yeah, no,
this.
definitely. Retrofitting is a big challenge, and then I think even as Anna mentioned, right, having access to your community or even your unit is super important. So I think what we decided to do, and again, this was after some trial and errors, is definitely hardwire, internet power to the common areas, right? For so that the locks are always operational, there is no downtime. But then even for our unit doors, right? I think what we realized is there could be a need for having offline access. Like let's say, because it was very difficult for us to hardwire every unit door. So what we decided is, yes, we need to provide offline access, having a master code that is generated, controlled, and then definitely that will allow the user just with their phone to unlock those doors. So that's really a Bluetooth enabled unlock. So that will also, it's not like you need to punch in a code or do something else. It's more of the ease on the customer side. And I would say the customers have really liked that a lot. Like I really just need to keep my phone close by and it automatically unlocks the door for me, which is a big benefit if I have like bags in my hand or what have you. So that's something. And then coming to bulk internet, Wi-Fi, yes, we are trying to make it as seamless as possible. I like what you said, Rob, right? And I can quote on my own example moving in is, uh, I was really delighted because I think the first thing when a customer moves into an apartment, they really are not looking at the utilities or whatever, the appliances in the unit. They're like, can I get Wi-Fi? Previously, my experience was, yes, you need to call AT&T or you need to call Comcast or what have you and wait for a day or two. And that was the most frustrating experience. So if I can walk into a unit, my username password is right there on the kitchen countertop, or maybe it's given to me in advance, and I can instantly access internet. Internet has become one of the biggest necessities right now. I think I'll find it very difficult for folks to stay without internet in a brand new unit that they move in for even a day or two, right? So I think that's going to be a game changer, and that's what we are really trying to provide with our managed Wi-Fi bulk internet package. Like you're instantly on the moment you move into your unit.
Yes, I think that's something we're seeing in our consumer survey data. There's a tremendous amount of demand for that. A lot of interest. So we do have a few additional minutes for questions from the audience, and I have seen a couple of questions kind of roll in already. One of the questions wanted to know about, let's see, what is the panel's take on security, safety, and surveillance tech, and bringing it more to the forefront as a resident amenity? Any perspective on that?
And they were asking on surveillance specifically, is that correct? I mean,
Yes, surveillance, property surveillance as an amenity for residents.
interesting. I'm not 100% sure if I know if they're concerned about security as in can people get into it who should not, or whether or not they're talking about being able to have access to it themselves. But I think that that both of those are definitely valid topics. I will say security is a big deal, and you got to think about this when you're doing things like gate controllers and door locks and everything else. That it's this is access to someone's unit. And so there's a lot of liability that goes with that. I don't have any silver bullet answers on that outside of tell people like definitely do due diligence. When you look at these solutions, I think the solution that Anna's describing using cellular is a great one because cellular is inherently very secure. It's probably one of the most secure communication protocols out there. So that's for something like a door lock or a gate, a gate controller, I would consider that to be very good. On the surveillance side and making that surveillance available to residents, we have had a number of different clients ask about that. And we've gone back and forth on it. And I will say that I don't know that I have an opinion on it because I've heard so many different opinions from different owners on it, right? In their legal counsel on making video streams available live and the potential liability that exposes versus the potential liability that it removes, right? And that I can see who's at my front door without having to open it, or I can see who's at the gate before I let them in. So I think that I think it's a topic that we're going to hear a lot more about in the next couple of years here.
I have one thing I'd like to add on that as well, if we have time. Oh, we're
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have we have a few. We can have a couple more discussions.
Well, I mean, one of the things to think about, anytime you have something that plugs into your Wi-Fi, other than your computer, which you want to keep secure with 2FA and passwords and all that stuff, that's one of the big reasons why there are water leak detection devices out there that are pretty inexpensive. You can plug them into your Wi-Fi, and a lot of them are made in China. And I don't know if you guys have read some of these articles, but I mean, just last week there was an article about a vacuum cleaner made in China that has all this cool stuff where it reports to your Wi-Fi, but turns out they were also pulling in all sorts of data about you, and they have access to your computers, and that stuff that's another kind of esoteric, sounds esoteric security wise. It's a cyber security thing, but it's real.
Yes, I think we've also seen some various headlines about kind of cyber attacks of various parts of the U.S. infrastructure. So I think a lot of folks are expecting potentially more regulation to come down the pipe, kind of tightening that up. But yes, I think that was a wonderful discussion, and thank you all so very much for joining us and discussing these very much important topics. Very timely. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen,
Thank you.
and the panel and everyone.
Yeah.
Our next Smart Spaces event will be held virtually in August on the subject of access control, and we are going to be back in person in Dallas in September. Hope to see all of you panelists and the audience as well there. In addition to the study I mentioned earlier, we also have another one focusing on the resident perspective titled Smart MDUs, Property Provided Internet and Smart Devices, as well as our Smart, Safe, and Secure Apartment Living that is going to be coming up soon. And yes, thank you all, everyone. Have a good day.